Okay, so my teacher topic is on gender in teaching and learning. So there's three main terms that are further defined. So I'm going to start off with those. The first one is gender identity, which is a person's self identification as a gendered individual. I know you guys have probably all heard about it in news, media, have personal experience. I don't know that I need to go into much more detail about that. There's also gender roles, which are the cultural stereotypes of behaviors and characteristics of men and women. So that's cultural. So again, it's going to depend a little bit on where you're from, on what your gender roles typically are. And then there's also sexual orientation, which is the type of people to whom you are sexually or emotionally attracted. Okay, so the first subtopic under this is gender identity. So Erikson, which some of you should have read about this week, Erikson and other early psychologists thought that this was pretty straightforward and easy. You knew if you were a male or a female and you acted accordingly. That was basically what everybody thought. So now this is believed to be more fluid. Some identify their gender early on and it's very permanent. Others, gender formation may take longer, and students who are atypical in this area are often stigmatized. I'm sure you guys all know that. We've been talking about it for years now. Okay, so gender roles can vary by culture, time, and place. As early as age 2, children are aware of their differences. They notice that they're a girl, they're a boy, mom's a girl, dad's a boy, or whatever else you have going on. Children start noticing by age 2. By age 3, children believe that your sex cannot be changed. And by age 4, they spend most of their playtime with same sex playmates. So, also within these gender roles, and this will go along with gender bias that I'm going to talk about soon. Boys are generally encouraged to be more independent and assertive than girls are, and toys are generally gender specific. I'm sure you guys have all seen that. You grew up that way. You know that. So children develop gender schemas or knowledge of gender expectations. So they develop it based on what they see, what they're exposed to, what they're told. And this may lead to girls sticking to girl things and not doing boy things like playing with trucks or liking science. So by adolescence, they become even more focused, children do, on their gender stereotypes. Now, there is gender bias still in the media. So, I mean, I think we can all find it here and there with commercials and different things like that. Now, as far as curriculum go, publishers have established guidelines to prevent gender bias in educational materials. So you shouldn't see it in your curriculum. Now, you can still find it though in children's books. They still predominantly show boys as more aggressive and argumentative and girls as more affectionate and expressive. So as far as gender bias in teaching, okay, so here's the little caveat before I start. Most of the research that has been done over the last few decades has only focused on white students. So things may be different depending on your diversity. So over the past 30 years, teachers tend to interact more with boys, but it's not always in a positive way. And high achieving girls are the student demographic that receives the least amount of teacher attention. I thought that was somewhat interesting. And a teacher's attitude about their subjects, like if they dislike math or so if they show, like if a teacher talks about being nervous about a math test or something because and then they're also a female, that can influence girls' attitudes towards those same subjects. So basically, you have an influence whether you think you do or not. Recently, questions have been raised concerning boys and our current educational model. So the question being asked is the current model the best way to educate boys? And should boys and girls be taught differently and or separately? So there's some pros and cons to this. Some pros of being taught separately, basically having same-sex classrooms or even schools, is that girls can gain confidence in the STEM subjects if they're not around the boys who sometimes more naturally gravitate towards those. And boys then can also get extra help with literacy and cooperativeness. That's a pro that has been listed. The cons are the whole separate but equal scenario, as we know historically, doesn't really seem to work out very well. And it can actually make the gender differences more noticeable. And research shows that boys and girls, when they're children, are actually more similar than what adults think they are. And the reason, what this is hypothesized, they think one of the reasons that people believe that boys and girls are so different is because it's the adults formulating that hypothesis, and the adults, by the time they're thinking about that, they have been sexualized and stereotyped for decades. So they have that predominant thinking that, oh, men and women are so different, therefore boys and girls must also be different. They're showing now that that's not necessarily the case, that boys and girls are more similar than we think. Okay, so we also get into the sexual orientation. So there's 3 stages that they have come up with. Obviously, not everybody's going to go through these stages. These are for the sexual minority students. So beginning around age 6, they can start to feel different. They may notice that they may not have the same interests. If they're a boy, they may not have the same interests as the other boys. Or if they're a girl, they may not be interested in the same things as the other girls, that type of thing. By adolescence, they're feeling confused. But then by the end of adolescence on into their young adulthood, they start to feel acceptance for whatever way they think they are. So in the past, scientists thought that your sexual orientation was set in stone, that what you were is what you were, and that never changed. Now new models show that sexual orientation, they think, can be fluid and possibly change over a lifetime. So these sexual minority students, as you can imagine, do experience a lot of discrimination. So in a survey done, 82% report being verbally harassed, 55% experienced cyberbullying. So this increased stress with the victimization can make the sexual minority students at risk for not only just missing school, but also suicide. So teachers can offer a non-judgmental presence, and this can help students develop a more positive and healthy identity. So that's kind of the highlights for gender in teaching and learning. So I know you guys have probably seen it. You've seen it in your classrooms. You've seen it in the media. You've probably read articles, books. So if you have any questions, hit me up and I'll see what I can do to answer them. My source was just the textbook. It was on pages 254 to 262 if you want to read it for yourselves.